Hi guys, Sajid Amit here, and welcome to a review that's going to be a bit atypical because I have with me some cables here. And I understand that cables are a very divisive issue, right? And you see, I spend a bit of money on cables, and honestly, even if cables made no sonic difference, I'd still get these cables. These are all from Norne Audio, and they all have very different composition of material, geometry, and so forth, right? And I'm not saying that this geometry is what makes a difference to sound, but see, I personally I feel like it's good for me. I get excited when I lavish my expensive headphones with good quality cables that feel good, look good, and even if it's just psychoacoustics, makes a difference to the sonic performance for me. And so take this video with a huge grain of salt, with the disclaimer that a lot of what I'll discuss in terms of sonics could be psychoacoustics, but I do hear differences with the sound, and I really don't want any sort of firestorm of a debate happening on the basis of this video, because again, I disclaim that this could be very subjective and it could be mostly psychoacoustics. Okay, and with that out of the way, so I like Norn for a number of reasons. Like Trevor, who's behind Norn, is just wonderful to work with. He's kind, he's funny, he likes to converse, he likes to have conversations with his customers, and I've had many meandering conversations with him. And I've often heard people saying that he doesn't respond to emails, and that's because, guys, you need to get him on Telegram. Like, he's more active on Telegram. I think if you email him and get his Telegram handle and then speak to him, that's always been my preferred mode of communication with Trevor. He's very responsive on Telegram. He'll send you photos, he'll give you discounts, and he's just wonderful. And there's almost no one that I know who's worked with Trevor and not enjoyed it, as long as you reach him by Telegram. And so he works very closely with Peter Bradstock. He uses similar materials, and I don't want to get into who uses what, but this is information that I've received. I've used Peter's cables as well. Peter's also magnificent to work with, absolutely magnificent, right? And I've reviewed his cables as well. I don't have any Peter's cables with me for comparison, so this is just going to be about Norn. I want to be consistent. I wanted to be consistent about what cable maker I use across my headphones. So as you can see, this is a cable that I'm using with the Biz. This has a bit of an American flag colorway going on because it is an American-made headphone. I spent a lot of time in the US. In fact, I would say I grew up in the US, so I did want to I wanted to go for this kind of aesthetics. It's a copper cable. There's another cable I bought for the Biz. This is a pure silver cable. This is their flagship, as a matter of fact, the Silver Garde S5 189 AWG. Silver OCC lids this is an expensive cable. This I think retails for $1,300, $1,320, right? But this is a longish cable. I got an 8-foot cable, so that's worth keeping in mind. This is another flagship of theirs. This is the Vicary, which is a pretty famous cable. This is a 173 AWG flagship fusion cable. I think they call it the Vicary 2025. So like I said, this is 17.3 AWG with 18.9 AWG silver OCC lids. This is a fusion cable, and I have it terminated for Hyphaman, but then I'm also using adapters to try it with the Biz because I was ABing, and these are pigtail adapters, of course, very highly well finished and all that, right? So I can use it with both my Susvara or my 1266, and I really dig this sort of dark bronze splitter aesthetic that Trevor got, right? I think it's a beautiful cable. So all these cables I find quite beautiful, and I have another version of the Silver Garde, as the silver cable from Norn, and I wanted a gray sleeving for this one, right? A gray sleeve for this one, and I use it nowadays with my Susvara because it sounds really good with the Susvara. The Susvara sounds good with everything, but I do like switching up the cables, even if purely for aesthetic reasons. It's just another way of engaging with this hobby. I mean, it doesn't have to make sense for everyone, of course, right? Buying expensive cables and switching them out, but just approach it with the perspective that people do buy expensive straps for their watches and switch out between these straps. People spend a lot of money on luxurious materials for their watch straps, like croc leather and the rarest kinds of stuff, right? And they switch out because it looks good, because it feels good. So treat cables as an accessory, as an aesthetic accessory, as an ergonomic accessory if you don't want to believe in the sound. And like I said, even if they made no sonic difference, I would still buy these cables because of aesthetics, ergonomics, and overall the satisfaction I get by looking at them and by using them. And I think there's something there. We do pay for good looking things after all. Okay, and looks are subjective, so you might not find them good looking, but I do. Just a quick word about sound, guys. So as you can see, this copper cable is currently being paired with my 1266. I like this cable because it's a bit thinner. It's a copper cable, like I said, right? So this cable is their JS16 flagship copper lit. It's 16.5 AWG cable. It's a new cable, and you know, it's full copper lids, enamel coated strands, quad conductor, varied strand size. He calls it an endgame copper cable. It's a 9 feet long cable, and you know, it's got a FureTech rhodium mini XLR thing going. So this is actually an idolic XLR rhodium, but then these are FureTech, the connectors going into the headphone cups. And as is pretty evident, red tracers, blue metallic tracers, and I think this is a nice aesthetic. And I have this 5-axis artisan splitter, which you can get from Norn. I really like the splitter. As you can see, even this cable, the silver cable for the 1266 has the same splitter. And then I have the classic Norn splitter on this cable, and the classic Norn splitter also on this silver cable that I use with Susvara. So I feel like these two cables match Susvara really well in terms of aesthetics because of the brown and the silver that Susvara has. So I like, you know, mixing and matching like this. Finally, just to talk a bit about the sound, guys. So these are minute differences, but I do find that when I'm using EQ on the Abyss, on the 1266, I have preferred the silver cable. I don't use EQ often, but I really like using EQ with the 1266. And the EQ profile was constructed by a friend of mine, and I think it's the only EQ profile I've ever really liked. And I've used all the EQ profiles out there, from Oratory, from everyone under the sun who's ever prescribed EQ. I've been open enough to try them on each and every headphone that I've owned. Maybe that's an overstatement, but let's say 60% of all headphones I've ever owned that have passed through these hands, I've tried using EQ. So I'm open to EQ, but I've not liked the results. With this, I did. And this EQ was made by my friend Roasty, Gavin. A big shout out to Gavin. Okay, if you want the 1266 EQ, do let me know. Just drop me a message, a private message on Headfi. My handle is my name, Sajid Amit. But the credit goes to Roasty, who created it. I've never changed up EQ. It's just perfect as it is. Anyway, so in terms of sound, generally speaking, when I'm not using EQ, I prefer the sound of the copper cable with the TC. I find it to have a little more body in the mids, and I find it to have a little more attenuation in the highs. The Victory, however, is very special with almost everything that I've tried, and maybe I'll take this pigtail adapters out because it just makes it a little less ergonomic to hold up and show you guys. But these are the pigtail adapters, right? And they're pretty well made, guys. By the way, so you get, I think the pair costs around $135, especially using this Victory sort of material inside. So the Victory is a special cable. It does sound slightly richer, and it retains the qualities of the silver cable as well, insofar as I can tell, because I do find a certain incisiveness to the slam of the 1266. I keep calling it the TC and then the 1266. Pardon me using different terms for the Abyss headphone, but you know what I mean. So I find this to be an interesting match with the 1266. And then finally, this flagship silver guard is just a stunning cable to behold. The Victory is, of course, the most expensive of the lot here. Right, but this is also quite expensive at around $1,300. The Victory, I think, is over $1,500. And so both these cables worked really well with the Abyss, but I do use EQ with the silver cable, with the TC. This cable, I have adapters for this. I really like with the Sennheiser though, and it's an overkill. I know the 6XX should never get a cable of this price point, and I use it mostly out of experimentation. I do get a certain incisiveness to the treble that I think the headphone is missing, but more to a reasonable example, it works really well with LCD5 as well. The LCD5 and the Silver Guard are a match made in heaven. The focal clear can sound very warm on my chain, especially with the AIC Riviera, and I, especially with certain tubes, and I like this cable as well, the silver cable from Norn. With this focal clear, I get a little more incisiveness up top and a better sensor resolution at least. And the Susvara, it really is chain dependent. So I'm currently using the silver cable with the Susvara because the AIC warms it up a lot and makes it sound very nice and inviting and rich and sort of heavy throughout the frequency spectrum. It gives it a note weight. So it's really about mixing and matching, guys. I wouldn't be able to sort of recommend one cable. It really depends on your chain and your headphone. But I do want to mention that Norn can do that for you, and you can talk to Trevor to figure out what cable you need, what cable you should get. So that's it for me, guys. Just a quick one. Big shout out to Trevor. I've been working with him for years, so I pay money for these cables. But he's just great to work with, and I recommend him without any hesitation to work with. But do reach out to him on Telegram. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye bye.